All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? So I'll call to order the December 9th meeting of the Eastham Energy and Climate Action Committee. That we've updated our charter to include energy, although a lot of that has not been flowed through the Zoom site. Oh, here's Harriet. Hello, Harriet.
She's not quite there yet.
Almost.
Still connecting. Oh, now she's connected.
There we go. Hey, Harriet, thanks for joining us. No, we can't hear you yet.
Mute.
Zoom 101.
Awesome. All right, and this meeting is being recorded. Oops, let me find my notes here. Let's see. This meeting will be recorded and broadcast over local access channel 8 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. So let's go around the room real quickly as we usually do, just so everyone knows who's here. Tom McNellis and the chair.
Mike Sarcioni, member.
Olaf Hagelin, member.
Eleni Carr, member.
Gary Senical, I am a volunteer and also the liaison between the Climate Action Committee and the Recycling Committee.
John Boyney, member.
Let's go around Zoom and then we'll hit guests here. Jack.
Jack Hadley, volunteer.
Cheryl, I'm just going across the screen, at least my screen.
Cheryl Gale, volunteer.
And Sean.
On Hogan, the outsider from Barnstable.
So Harriet.
Harriet Emerson, member.
And Kathy.
Kathy Doyle, liaison with the Eastham part-time residents.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. And we have one guest in the room.
Hi, Parker Mumford, Robinson Independent.
Hey. Parker, and what was your last name here?
Mumford,
Mumford, M-U-M.
F-O-R-D, like the band.
F-O-R-D from the Provincetown Independent. That's cool. All right. So we'll start with any public comments. Would any member of the public like to speak?
Happy holidays.
Well, thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
All right, well, with that, we will move on to what I think you'll find a very exciting presentation. I'm really thrilled that Sean Hogan from the town of Barnstable, who's the sustainability manager, is that the right title, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay, has a really cool microgrid project. Very, I should say impressive. I say cool because I'm an engineer, but it's a really impressive project and a very impressive grant that he was able to wrangle in. And one note that from things that I've heard from other presentations, I think, Sean, you said that your salary was paid for like 10 times over or something in grants that you brought in so far. Something like that. Is that about right?
Yeah, for the next 450 years or so.
Oh, there we go.
Nice.
450 years of salary. That is awesome. So we are obviously very interested in microgrids as well. And although the particular grant here doesn't apply to Eastham, the approach absolutely, I think, could. So I'd like everyone to take a look at that. And Sean, take it away. Do you want to share your screen?
Sure.
I'm assuming that you have. I can promote you right here. Awesome.
He's muted.
So now you're muted, Sean.
You muted
no,
before you,
Oh, shoot. I hit the wrong button. Sean, we're not hearing you. You'll have to unmute.
I did, I think. But
Oh, sorry
Yeah,
about
you
that.
got
There
it.
we go. Okay. And
Oh.
I suppose there's a way to make this larger. No, that wouldn't be it.
Uh-oh, careful.
Cancel.
All right. If the, I don't know if Devin is,
want me to stop?
well, yeah, there may be, there we go. Cool.
It's fine.
Oh, no, sorry, I stopped sharing. Okay. How about I just do that?
All right. Now we got it.
certainly good
Yeah.
at.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you can go to presentation mode, that'd be awesome.
Slideshow.
It's been a while since I've done this.
Your slideshow.
Hold on a second. Okay, how about this? Does
All right.
that work?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good enough for
good
now.
enough.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I was gonna try and keep this high level so that there'd be like more time for questions. Uh, this is the Barnstable microgrid. I kept the wind turbines in the background as like an homage to the reason that we qualified for the grant. The grant was called the Transmission Siting Economic Development Grant. It was a very open-ended grant. It could be pretty much for anything that a town wanted. We didn't have a program ready to go to take advantage of this, and so I kind of scoured the town for problems that I thought we could solve with this grant and put together this microgrid proposal. The maximum allowable fund was like award was 50 million, and so I swung for the fences, and they gave us 42.3. The basic I think it was luck, but you know, more times at bat, the more times you have to hit. So what we have here is from the above view is our largest school campus. It's the Barnstable High School, the intermediate school, as well as the adult community center. And they're each different parcels, but they're all essentially connected. You can walk between them, drive a golf cart between them very simply. And the energy costs for this facility is enormous. We're spending like $1 million or so on between electricity and gas a year. It consumes quite a bit and it emits a good number of greenhouse gases. And to boot, the high school doesn't have air conditioning during the summer. And when the power goes out, the school has to close. So the idea here is to connect all of them into a single microgrid and take advantage of our like copious parking for solar canopies to electrify the high school, rip out its HVAC system and give us air conditioning year round, and also ditch the gas boilers. And so this would be 100% electric, which means it could run off of the solar canopies and the battery backup that we would put on site. It would also allow us to charge fleet vehicles, which admittedly now we don't have very many of them, but in the medium to long term, I hope we'll transition our bus fleet to electric. And so during an emergency, those buses could be charged here. If we're cut off from fueling supplies, that's kind of a great, it's in some ways, it's even better than like the diesel backups or gas storage, because this is fuel we can produce on site. And so it can become a rally point for the town. The high school and the middle school together would comprise a substantial emergency shelter, which could operate in all forms of weather. And so this grant simultaneously improves the lives of our students by giving them much better indoor air quality, reduces our energy bills, and gives us a nice little citadel to fall back to during the darkest moments. Here's a quick, I'm going to end on this slide and then we can have questions, but this is a summary of the benefits of the microgrid, the economic benefits. It was very important to me when I was putting together this proposal that it pencil out not just for the town, not just for the state, but for the country at large. I wasn't looking to sort of rob Peter to pay Paul or take from the feds and just waste it here in Barnstable. All these programs pay for themselves. The improved air quality has a pretty substantial lifetime learning benefit by cutting back absences. And this was backed by research in California, where they found that after improving the indoor air quality for their schools, disease transmission went down and absences went down. And the impact to life learning is quite substantial, and it tends to fall or benefit the people that benefit most are the people who need it most. Because when students from wealthier families miss school, it's much easier for those families to then hire tutors or do whatever it takes to get them back up. But if you're from a poorer household who doesn't have those resources, then each of those learning losses tends to add up and really knock down your lifetime earnings substantially. Another element of this program is our paid internship program, and that will come from the savings of the microgrid. So I promised that we would take a segment of the energy savings and funnel it into a paid internship program. Currently, we do internships at the high school, but a lot of them are unpaid. And so that means, I mean, if we're being really honest, that means that children from the wealthier families are going to get the most benefit from these internships because they can afford to say, not work at Chipotle over the summer and take that dream internship that might enhance their career prospects and do it for nothing. What we would do instead is set aside that funding and say, hey, you got an internship, they're not willing to pay you, we get it, we'll pay you. And so we'd have enough from the savings from this to pay about 40 internships per year, and that adds up to a pretty substantial lifetime earnings impact in the hundreds of millions. So overall, even though this costs, I guess, if you want to think of the taxpayers, the federal taxpayers, Massachusetts, it costs us $42 million to do this project. The benefits over the 30 years is in the hundreds of millions. Yeah, and then the more basic savings, the things that come back right immediately to the town are obvious: the electrical savings and natural gas savings. The natural gas would go away entirely, and the electrical savings were essentially buying our electricity in advance, as opposed to relying on the ever increasing costs from the grid. And that would save us about $25 million over a 30-year life of the project. Though we anticipate that the grid itself, the microgrid itself, could last far beyond the 30-year time horizon, but I wanted to keep a reasonable life cycle in place for the economic analysis. So yeah, that's basically like all the meat and potatoes of this. I'm happy to take questions now.
Hey, Sean, Mike Sarcioni.
Yeah.
Two questions. I'll ask the first one and then I'll ask the second one. Would you, for the internships, would you consider any of those to be potentially technical in nature? Whereas, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Say we get a Barnstable student that goes to the tech school in Harwich. It's in the electrical shop. He or she would like to learn more about microgrids and solar and so forth. Would that be a potential internship?
Oh yeah, that'd be my dream internship. And actually, because we so desperately, I just know from firsthand experience, we so desperately need electricians. The Massachusetts Building Trades Union, as part of this grant proposal, they agreed to run career fairs for us, and we were hoping to use the microgrid itself as sort of an example, a learning example. Both while they're in school, we were going to have elements of the microgrid be transparent with so you could like see its operation, and also dashboards that teachers could take students to and do projects on. We were also hoping to just use it as a standing example of what you can accomplish with a skilled trade and the kind of impact that you can have on your community with a skilled trade. And the Massachusetts Building Trades Union agreed to offer to come to career fairs and to host career fairs at the school and use the microgrid as that centerpiece.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, question number two. Being another engineer in the room and having his own residential microgrid.
Nice. Jealous. Good.
Can you share with us the production capacity, the storage capacity, the usage by month? What I'd like to understand is, how long can you run your HVAC systems, the electrification of the entire of all the buildings. If you talk about emergency shelter in the winter, how long can you run those to keep the facility warm before you run out of steam? Say the canopies are covered with 3 feet of snow, we've had a blizzard, and you don't have that production. How long can you survive?
Well, we haven't sized the battery exactly yet. What I can tell you is that we have 4.4. Our electrical needs will increase because we're getting rid of the gas, and so that'll jump us up to about somewhere between 3 and 4 million kilowatt hours a year, and our solar production potential on site is well in excess of that, somewhere between 4.5 and 5 million kilowatt hours, conservatively. So on a year end, on a over year basis, we can produce as much as we need. But obviously, that scenario that you cited is a potential problem if we're solar campus and not
right. If you're going to advertise this as an emergency shelter, we better make sure we understand what that really means.
Yeah, and we have a study that's Of course,
Okay.
no, but to get that kind of detail, that level of detail, we need a study, which we're in the process of funding now to really get to the nuts and bolts of what the high school needs, because that's the problem. The high school has a very, its HVAC system is very dated, and it's kind of a hodgepodge building that was constructed. It has portions of it from one decade, other portions from another decade, and we're not 100% sure what the HVAC demand is going to be on that once we electrify.
Okay, to be, sorry, I lied.
Yeah, that's fine.
Would you consider your energy storage being potentially used as a peaker, in the prime, usage, months in hours during the summer, when there's not much going on at the school?
Yeah, we've thought about that and taking advantage of demand response programs. This is very early days, but we've also considered including this campus and expanding this like microgrid idea to other municipal locations and creating like a virtual power plant.
Yeah, because that's another source of potential revenue for the,
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
So, excuse me, this is Olaf Hagelin.
And I think Jack had his hand up for.
Oh, okay,
We'll get to you
sorry.
next, Olaf.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. So my question is a non-technical. Did you have any
Okay.
help from the Massachusetts congressional delegation in putting this proposal together? And was the town select board, what was their role in helping put this together?
I don't know how to answer this without sounding like a douchebag. It was mostly me. It was mostly me. I mean, honestly, there's like a capacity issue in town. When I first saw this grant, I did walk around to all the various other departments to see if I could get input, and there just wasn't enough. People just didn't have the time to give me a proposal that would fit this large sum. And this proposal came from mostly me just talking with other people in town and kind of putting together what the town's biggest complaints and stressors were. And I worked a lot. I mean, I got a lot of help, but the idea was mine. The congressional delegation, I don't think was looped in, and town council, they knew I was working on it because I reported up the chain, but they didn't have much to say about it.
Okay, well, congratulations. Great job.
I should I call out the like Mass Department of Energy Resources. Oh my gosh, they were so helpful because I'm a relative novice when it comes to like bureaucratic infighting and taking all the boxes on a federal grant, and they have more experience with that, and so they were able to take the grant proposal that I cried over and refine it and make sure that I said all the right things and deleted the right things to make it palatable.
Great, thank you.
Yes, Sean, this is Olaf Hagelin. I'm interested in a lot of different areas of this. Did you consider a ground source heat pumps as an option for this, or is that still in design?
Well, I mean that's the primary goal for the HVAC. Like that's what we're shooting towards. And if I'm honest, that's like the biggest, most expensive chunk of that 42 million. And when I was writing the grant, I emphasized that was like the key component that we would need help with. I could probably find ways to fund other elements of this. I could find ways to fund the solar. I could probably even find ways to fund the battery. But electrifying the HVAC, even though the impact on students is, I'd argue substantial, and the impact on the climate also substantial, it's a harder sell because retrofitting an old building like that and switching to ground source heat pumps is a huge headache. And so in the grant, when I was asking the feds, I was like, if you say no to everything else, just say yes to this.
Yeah, thank you. And are you, and the demand response, are you just using, is that intended to be using the battery essentially during an event, things like that?
Yes, this was an estimate I got in talking with the Cape Light Compact over 30 years. It's a very loose estimate. The electrical savings is relatively specific. The natural gas is also an estimate because it's kind of hard to forecast those prices over that length of time.
Right. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Sean?
Not a question, but I have to say, and I'm not an engineer, I'm very impressed with what you were able to put together here. And I'm just trying to consider what the impact is for the town's you know, beyond the Barnstable area, the rest of the Cape, like, what is this saying to us? In terms of what's possible.
I mean, I think a lot of this is possible even without the large grants. The electrification is like the most painful part, but a lot of the solar, the battery, these are things I think can pencil out over the long term, depending on the building. So I think it's like something to aspire to. I know I'm getting greedy, and I'm hoping to do it to a lot of our other buildings, grant or no. So.
Hey, Sean, Gary, go ahead.
Sean, I think I asked this at the meeting we had earlier. How long did the project take from beginning to end?
To like, well, maybe a year, but that's accepting that I was doing other things as well. And that it was a lot. If you want to know like how long it took me to write it specifically, I'd say one really terrible month. I should thank David Anthony, my boss, because there were several demands on my time and other requests for meetings, and he kind of hid me away for that month because he could just see like my hair was starting to stand straight up. A lot of weekends, a lot of late nights. So yeah, one really intense month, and then like a year of interviewing facility services at the school to get a better sense of what they needed, and working with planning, things like that.
And Sean, how long will it take to complete once things are fully approved and started?
Well, once things start, there's definitely a clock. We have four years to roll it out in its entirety. So it would be, I think that's pretty fast, but doable.
And as part of that, the interconnect queue, have you been working with Eversource? Is some of that on-ramp smooth for you?
Not yet, and I haven't been able to get like response from Eversource, which is embarrassing.
And no surprise there, I guess.
I figured that they would respond quickly because they're like, this is probably going to be annoying for you on some level. Maybe you want to talk to me, but no.
Wonder if they could try to kill it.
I suppose they could. There's lots of things that could potentially kill it.
Are you staying with us for the rest of the meeting, or are you?
It's up to you. I'm a team player. I'm here to be useful.
Well, no, I just want to make sure if you knew about the Cape Tech EV bus contract.
Why don't you talk about that now, Mike?
Okay. All right, sure, I can do that. We're done with Sean. All right, so Sean and everyone. Cape Destinations. Yeah, you can take that down. Cape Destinations was just awarded a contract by Cape Tech for a 5-year bus contract. And that was a grant that was through the federal government to purchase 10 electric buses.
Nice.
That will be hosted at the tech school in Harwich. So that they've got some diesel backups just in case, because that was part of the contract.
Yeah.
But so for the next 5 years, beginning in January, Bluebird has been solicited to supply the 10 electric buses, and that will be their primary mode of transportation. So that'll be a test case for the Cape in terms of a large EV school bus fleet. So you should definitely stay tied into that.
Yeah, that's very exciting. We've been flirting with the idea, but we still have concerns given the size of Barnstable.
And the chargers will be on site at the school, and they're also looking additionally at a solar canopy as part of that as well. So,
ooh, that's exciting.
So 25 to 30 is the new contract, FY 25 to FY 30.
And how many buses?
10
buses.
10 electric buses, right? Full size buses.
Very cool.
Remind me the geography, the geography?
Harwich Cape Tech takes school kids from Mashpee all the way up to P-Town.
Okay, great.
Some of the longer routes may go with diesel initially until they get their arms around the range of the electric buses. But I've also asked them as well to consider, I've been in contact briefly with Cape Light, letting those buses, since they're sitting there over the summer, primarily unused, to be part of the virtual power plant, demand response as well. So
that's clever. I like
that would be another opportunity for income. But that is not part of the contract currently.
Big batteries, huh?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Great great and exciting news on all fronts there.
Yeah.
All right.
Well done,
so-
Sean.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. We really appreciate it, and you're certainly welcome to stay as long as or short as you wish.
Okay, well, I think I'll take off. I've been here since 7.
Good enough. Yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sean.
All right, next on the agenda is the town administrative update, and Shayna, had a doctor's appointment, was not able to join us tonight. But she gave a couple of, pieces to convey to everyone. One, unfortunate piece of news is Angela, who is, our IT department, has resigned. And that her last day was last Friday, before Thanksgiving. So we're not sure what that means yet to the website redesign process, unfortunately. I think we need to maybe get some information as the town figures out where it's going to go next and how quickly that may happen in terms of a replacement. And I suppose if it's a long process, maybe that's something we should consider for a longer term, do we want to do a short term update and a longer term update? I think that would be a discussion to have, I would think.
We also want to have some discussion of alternatives to the town site. The working group has been kicking around ideas, including using social media as a venue. Wondering, so I think this, further fires the need to look at those options. And again, I presume we have to kind of work through Shayna to at least assess whether those sorts of things are options that we can pursue or.
That's a good question. I think, if we represent ourselves as the town on Facebook in some capacity, we probably at least need to get a thumbs up. So do you have ideas yet on that? Does the work group have ideas yet?
Well, Facebook is one idea, in fact, and the town, as you are aware, has two pages, I believe, on Facebook. I'm honestly not sure what distinguishes the two, but there are two that are labeled Town of Eastham. So I think we should start there and see how those are operated, what the policies are, and maybe we can piggyback on one of those. That would be a logical first way to inquire, I think.
Okay, we
So
can keep that up with.
There are two. There's also, I don't know if I meant where I mentioned this, but there's a Department of Public Health that operates out here as well, and they recently ran, a flu vaccination clinic here, actually at Town Hall. And apparently they advertised it through their website, on Facebook. So that was kind of, because that's an official, town department or something like that. I don't see regular postings. I joined it, but I don't see regular postings from them. I'm assuming if they have another vaccination clinic, they would advertise it, would come up on my feed. But that might be another option.
Okay, that's great.
Sure.
This precedent.
We've
I'm
got
sorry,
Cheryl.
The Council on Aging has their own webpage. Gary, I thought at times I've seen the recycling committee post things on Facebook, but I don't know if they're just posting through another, like the general outside Eastham group.
Yeah,
They
are.
The library has their own stuff, so those are town departments, which are a little different than a town committee. But I think it's certainly worth producing, because with HR, nothing happens quickly for hiring and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. Jack.
Yeah, so I was going to ask Shayna this question. Maybe you know the answer. The question is whether a report that we did on the survey, has that been posted yet? Because I've not been able to find it.
Yeah, I have not checked, but I guess I'm not surprised.
And And then in addition to thinking about social media, and I've talked about this with Eleni and John, I think we should just try to exploit the mailing lists that we have, the email list, as much as we can. And I don't know, again, if we need to sort of go to the town and say, could we just send things out to people who are on our email list? But in the short term, that seems to me the most direct way of communicating with at least 100, 150, however many names we have on that list, people who are interested.
Yeah, we have about 250 to 70 right now. And in the past, we have not requested specific permission, but we have been careful about not spamming people too often.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's a great idea, Jack. I think it's very good.
And at a minimum, a lot of people who completed the survey signed up because they'd like to get a copy of the results. And I think we should start with them and just not hang around and wait for the town to dilly-dally, so.
Well, and we had received permission to release it, and I believe Kathy and EPR, the EPRDA has put it up on their website.
Right, we already posted it.
Okay.
So we
Maybe
can
you could post
actually,
a link to that.
yeah, we could actually point to EPRDA.
So if you join the Part-Time Residents Association, you're welcome to see it. Actually, we do post some things on our, at least the headlines on our public page as well, because we have a public and a members only page. So Mike, you should see your electric car show is on the public, is on the calendar for the public page.
Thank you.
Kathy, not to go too far down this hole, but do you track use and access to any particular parts of things that you're posting?
So not yet. We just put our website up in July, and we're hoping that with next year's budget, we can put in the tracking software to do that. So we don't have that yet.
Okay.
But I'll let you know when we do.
Great.
Okay. Other items from Shayna. Shayna has submitted the grant application for the Climate Leaders Program. Actually, it's not a grant, it's a I don't know what you would call it, it's not a membership. It's recognition into that program. We believe this will open up the possibility for additional grants and projects. As we understand it, it's likely to be a mechanism kind of like Green Communities was, Green Communities 2.0 type of thing will be the Climate Leaders Program. As far as I know, they have not released specific details of that yet, but we're very excited that we are in the queue for getting approval. We'll see, there's a set of criteria. I think we met 4 out of the 6 criteria. Number 6 criteria was the what's called an energy decarbonization roadmap, which nobody would have yet because that's the subject of this application. So the first step, if we do get approved, would be the state will provide a consultant to come in, no cost to the town, and we'll create a decarbonization roadmap for municipal buildings. So that's very exciting, and I hope we can include the little welcoming booth. I guess it's called the booth, right?
Yeah.
The Chamber of Commerce runs, but it's actually a town building.
Yeah.
And I'm told one of the most used visitor centers on the Cape.
Yeah.
And the possibility is to have that open even further during the year if it can get heat and maybe get rid of those old air conditioners that are in windows.
We have the right people behind it, so I think it should happen.
Yeah,
Tom.
we'll see.
I think it should happen.
Okay, there's no update on the EV chargers from NLX. As you know, NLX just shut down their whole North American system. Supposedly they went out for some sort of auction. It almost looked like like what one would do in a bankruptcy type of situation, but they didn't seem to call it that. And they were hoping to get a company to come in and run the back end of their chargers. Unfortunately, the chargers, as you know, are proprietary chargers, and so all 8 in our town, as far as I know, are dead. They're not usable unless anyone has tried them recently. So hopefully, we're kind of holding on to see what happens next on that. The recommendation in terms of a few companies that have suggested they can kind of get in through a back door. It's been recommended not to try that because it's had mixed results, and in some cases made things worse. So we're waiting. And that was it for,
Tom,
yes.
Can we ask Shana if they could put signs up that they're not working? I was at the library recently and some poor person was trying to get it to work. And I said, I don't think there's anything coming out of those things. And when I asked the library about it, they said, well, it's not us. So I don't know if there's a way the town could, you know.
I asked for that before, but I'll try again.
Yeah, I've also made the suggestion, but you know, maybe Cheryl, you have a good point. Maybe that becomes more of our formal requests to ask the town to do that. Right after they get our climate report, climate survey report posted. But I don't see any reason we can't send out the climate survey report if somebody wants a copy of that, because it's been approved, so. Okay. Next up.
Tom, before you move on, just what are people expected to do with these chargers not functioning? Where are people being redirected anywhere, or it's just bad luck?
At this point in time, I don't think so. I know there's a couple of resources that direct people to chargers, and I suspect it's still showing these. Yeah, does it still show these as usable? I suspect it does.
So what they should do is on the phone app that they're using, you can report outages. So if somebody's there trying to charge and they know it's not working, if they report on the app that's not working, other people will see that before they go there, so. But the people.
Would they just go away at some point, or is it to be determined, or?
You mean the
charger, right? If it's proprietary, it's difficult for someone to come in and, I mean, I can see that being a frustrating experience. You know, I might get an electric car, then you can't charge. I mean, I know there's only so much we can do about that, but I think that's a really good point. And, you know, they're just kind of dead and sitting there. Then people try them and get frustrated, and it's not a happy experience.
Right. So as you may remember, the 4 chargers here at Town Hall, we have received a thumbs up for a grant to put in DC fast chargers. That is coming from the federal NEVI grant, the National EV Charging Infrastructure. So that's very exciting. Don't know how long that's going to take. I mean, the state was hoping, as they conveyed it to us, they're hoping to have that done by the end of the year, but nobody really thought that could happen. So hopefully at some point next year, the 4 here will be replaced. That's the plan. The 4 at the library, though, are in limbo. And likely those would have to be, if NLX doesn't step up to the plate here and figure out a way to turn them back on again, they probably would have to be replaced. And you know, it's small consolation, but we're not the only ones in that boat. There's furious owners across the nation that are facing this. There was no warning. They sent out a nice little email, Dear John email, that said, oh, by the way, 2 weeks from now, we're going to turn them off.
Wasn't there a grant earlier this year about replacement and or maintenance of electric chargers?
There was, yeah.
But it's
done. And yeah, the frustrating part, of course, is that NLX had came and fixed the 2 that were broken.
Right.
And if they had said way back then that they were exiting, we could have replaced them maybe.
They probably didn't know.
Probably not. All right. Good discussion. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes, because I had forgotten to include the minutes in your meeting packet last month. We now have 3 minutes, set of minutes to approve. So there are, let me go ahead my list here.
November?
That would have been 3.
September, October, November?
There were 2 in October.
Yeah, we had
because
2
did the
in
one
October.
extra meeting to discuss the greenhouse gas survey
Yeah,
or
I'm trying-
inventory.
Trying to find out exactly.
So it is in your meeting packet. If, does anyone, hopefully you all have had a chance to take a quick look at it. Does anyone have any questions or comments on those drafts? So it was the 21 October, the 31 October, and the 18 November.
Right.
Motion to approve all three.
Second,
Any further questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that's approved. Thank you. Next up, there are a couple items that we queued up for discussion. One of them was some interesting discussions and questions that have been coming, which I think were entirely relevant regarding the new charge. And one of the questions also was from Willow, who's going to be managing and facilitating our goals meeting coming up. So I thought it might be helpful to, I tried to kind of digest and diagram the charge. Took me longer than I thought, and so I ended up kind of putting it, see if I can find my to share my screen. Share, there we go. So I thought it might be a decent format to help discuss and figure out okay. There we go. Yeah, help kind of digest what we have, because it's in prose, and so it's not as not as concise as one might like to see. So this is kind of how I outlined it. So this is kind of for discussion and ideas and thoughts and feedback. Kind of at the top level, there's two pieces, right? We have the mitigation, which is reducing greenhouse gases, and Eastham greenhouse gas emissions, and that's kind of aimed towards the state goals that are flowed down through the Barnstable County. And then you have the adaptation side, which is resiliency to climate change. The overall charge says, we're recommending to the select board. And the way that's been interpreted is that, they are cognizant of everything we're doing. We report to them each year. They know what we are planning. They're certainly invited month to month if they wish to come and meet with us. And usually our liaison, which is Jerry, will come and once a year. So kind of overall, that's how we handle the select board, approval. We serve at the what's the right word? The pleasure of the select board, I think, is kind of the way to say that.
Advisory.
Yeah, there we go.
Advisory capacity.
Okay. Yeah, advisory. So now some of them, though, some of the items are more specifically things that the select board has to be in the loop for. And the top one on both sides of there is policy recommendations. So if we have specific policies, and we did last year the specialized energy code, recommended that be put in the warrant, and it was approved. There are other policies that in some cases different regulatory committees could have potentially the ability to put them in place. We are not a regulatory committee, so things would get recommended through the select board. There could be things coming out of the climate action plan, and you'll see the climate action plan work scope in a few minutes here. The next is infrastructure. So what I put on the left was clean energy infrastructure. You know, clean energy meaning things that would be, you know, electrifying and less fossil fuel. Maybe there's a different way to say that. If you have any ideas, let me know. This is just an informal document though. So, on the right-hand side is resilient infrastructure. So a big piece of what we're also looking at is, you know, things like solar both reduce greenhouse gases and provide resiliency if you have batteries. Mike, looks like you had a.
Yeah, as you say, on the
thought.
left, I would recommend that we talk about renewable energy infrastructure, because clean, you could argue, is natural gas, right? And
Okay,
natural
okay.
gas argues that they're clean.
So on the left, you're thinking.
Renewable energy
Yeah.
infrastructure,
That's good.
but on the right,
Is, so is, I guess renewable energy is something that is not fossil fuel, or,
correct,
okay,
correct, unless you take the state's definition, that includes incinerators as renewable energy,
yeah, okay, okay,
unfortunately. But anyways, but on the right, it's not just energy, right? It's all about road structure, it's about, you know, flooding, wildfire.
good point.
So it's not just energy on the right, it's,
So resilient infrastructure.
right, resilient
Okay.
infrastructure, right?
I like that. Okay. The next major category is public outreach, right? We do a lot of that. I listed the way it was mentioned in the way we helped craft the charge, and we can make whatever changes we want here in this little, you know, cheat sheet. But, in the mitigation side, we talked about residents, businesses, and municipality. You know, each of those constituencies having different, you know, footprints, that can help reduce, you know, greenhouse gases. And on the right side, we listed residents, homeowners, businesses, and municipality. On the, for resiliency, adaptation side.
Yeah, I'm thinking on the right, much like you have on the left, you've got identify project and funding opportunities. I think you need something on the right as well, because who's gonna pay for, you know, re-architecting the beaches, replacing boardwalks, replacing, you know, all the damage that's done. There's gotta be a funding avenue to do that, and, you know, how does that get funded fairly? Right, like, you know, what happened at Marconi this year, right? They lost all their.
Yeah,
Right, and it's the same thing that used to happen in Nauset Light, that they finally changed the whole pathway down to the beach. And we architected and constructed that whole approach, so, but somebody's gotta pay for repairs due to effects of climate change and or major storms. The question is, how do we do that? Well, how do we recommend to the board that we as a town, particularly on the bay side, and not the ocean side, because the ocean side is all National Seashore, in Eastham. But on the bay side, you know, we've got a lot of infrastructure that gets damaged. So.
So for the right, we could
How
say
do we pay for that?
for resilient infrastructure type of thing?
Yeah. For infrastructure repairs, you know, funding for infrastructure repairs. How do we approach that? What's the best way to do that fairly? You know, you tax everybody, or do you just tax people that just use the beaches? You know, do you up to parking fees? You know, so what's the, you know, what's the best way to go do that?
Okay.
I mean, there's also that sort of, I mean, if we talk about the Nauset High School, we talk about the National Seashore as not being, you know, but they are in our neighborhood, they are in our community. The question is really, you know, like, I'm just looking at the marsh, for instance. I assume that's National Seashore, the Nauset Marsh. It is
Well, on the ocean side, yeah.
Right, exactly,
Yeah.
and it acts as a buffer, you know, it is a buffer for potentially, you know, storm surges or even sea level rise. And so I think we brought it, I think we discussed it in maybe the last meeting, we had a little sidebar about, you know, would it make sense to partner, you know, in some way with the National Seashore, for instance, you know?
But partner.
We did talk about that.
Yeah, something like
That's a
that,
great idea.
yeah.
Yeah, because they own much of what potentially could be wildfire.
Yeah,
As well.
exactly, yeah,
But that's,
yeah.
if not maintained properly, which they haven't been doing for the
Right,
past several years
right.
because of funding issues, but.
So yeah, the National Seashore, that's a really interesting piece. And another would be the school
Well, the
district.
regional, yeah, the regional schools, right, you got the middle school in Orleans, you got the high school here
Mhm.
in, Eastham.
So what are we proposing? Another bullet level heading? same level as policy recommendations, et cetera, or that would be partnering or would it, yeah.
We can maybe put it under the projects and funding and partnering, with that partnering there,
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
perhaps. We'll put a category on the right-hand side to mimic the,
Although you
Near
could
the
see
left.
partnering for other, like conducting public outreach and education, I think partnering could be a big part of that being successful.
Yeah, I omitted to say what we're partnering on, but you know, it's a resource,
Yes, that-
obviously, you know, sits right in our neighborhood. And, you know, so I think we'd have to put more meat on the bones to figure out exactly what that is. And there may be, what is the benefit to the seashore? What is the benefit to the town of Eastham and so forth, we need to figure out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just had to question the scope of the partnering, but I guess to be
Exactly.
determined, so.
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah. I see, Jack, you got your hand up?
Yes, this is kind of a trivial point, but homeowners are a subset of residents.
yeah.
So either they should be on both sides or on either side, in my mind. It kind of looks kind of odd otherwise. That's kind of the nitpicking point. But in response to Mike's comment, under approaches on both sides, you could have two bullets, two sub-bullets. One would be the sort of technology or the science, whatever you want to call it. How do we do these things? The second could be costs and financing as something that the committee could look at. I mean, I don't think we have the resources to do things in depth, but it would address, I think, Mike's very cogent comment that, you know, you can recommend anything, but unless you say something about what's it going to cost and how we're going to pay for it, it's kind of not very helpful.
So you think you put that in which,
Under the approaches and under both.
Yeah, under the approaches, there would be two bullets, two sub-bullets. One would be the technology and science, and the other would be costs and financing.
okay. And we can do that on both sides, certainly.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And I think he commented, is homeowners is kind of redundant on the right, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
And I put it up there because we inserted it into the chart, but only on one side of the equation.
Yeah.
So I wonder, maybe we just delete it here.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's
They
redundant.
should be parallel.
Because it's redundant.
And coming back to the partnering question just for a second, I would lobby for making it a parallel level of organization on par with approaches. Because we're talking about making policy recommendations, we're talking about approaches, we're talking about outreach and education, projects, identifying projects, and then I would say partnering, coordination, collaboration across boundaries. That's a distinct additional, I think, kind of type of activity. And again, on both sides, right?
Yeah, that fits well then, as we expand that approaches piece. Okay, very good.
I guess I would also say, I think homeowners is a more inclusive term rather than residents, because
Well, you got renters, you got part-time, you got full-time, so
yeah, that's
not
true.
everybody owns a home.
Right. Why would it be, it seems like.
I don't know, I'd say maybe it's less inclusive, maybe I don't know, let me scratch that.
Yeah, think about that.
So may
Right.
I make a comment about the resident? You know,
Sure.
there is a lot of political baggage around the resident versus non-resident versus what language you use to describe people who are taxpayers, own property and pay taxes in Eastham. So I would kind of, I mean, not that I get a vote, but I would vote for homeowners. Because whether you live there full-time or you live there on a part-time basis, you still are owning a home and paying tax in East.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
So maybe we add homeowners to the left, because I think we still miss other residents if we're
Yeah.
just pointing out homeowners, right? We have renters, we have
Right.
Correct.
subletters, we have,
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean,
okay.
maybe we're mincing, you know, this is just semantics.
To me,
but-
residents includes all of that, but I mean.
But there are a lot of people that are residents
What about
just in the
visitors?
summer.
I think we're just trying to distinguish as, you know, what's not a business or a municipality,
Right.
the rest of us,
You wanna
civilians.
say full and part-time residents with that? Or,
No, because it's renters too,
no, full and part-time residents.
Yeah,
I'm saying.
but there's renter that fits in there as well.
So Kathy, is there a better
You
word?
wouldn't need to
for,
call out.
No,
renters.
but what about visitors?
No.
As visitors also, that's a good point.
Because you're
Although,
trying to educate, we'd like to educate the visitors too about what they should be driving here, how they should be buying while they're here.
Yeah,
types of,
that's a
you
stretch,
know.
Mike.
yeah,
I'm sorry, it's a stretch.
I think that's a
Well,
stretch. I think
yeah,
that's a stretch.
process.
I don't think that's gonna be your primary, you're gonna be your primary audience here. In, for either for actions or adaptation.
Kathy, what do you think though, in terms of a single word that might be all encompassing that represent, non-commercial, the non-municipal, non-business? What's the other subset there?
I don't think,
Residential stakeholders. That's too complicated, maybe,
you get into a lot of semantics, if you start to talk about things like taxpayers, right? Because not everybody pays, not everybody, people who are renting are not taxpayers in that same sense. I think I would just go with the residents and homeowners on both sides.
Yeah. I think that's fine.
Okay. All right, then the other thing I wanted to show you, this is what was put together last year for the goal meeting. And this was something that was discussed somewhat quickly, but was put together by Roberta to be a goal statement, kind of summarizing what we're trying to do. At the time, it was just the Climate Action Committee, but an informed advisor and resource to the select board. Info and recommendations regarding climate action and plans and policies, best practices for reducing the town's contribution and planning for impacts. And then also a residents let's see, it says community, so educational resource to the Eastham community. So I guess that covers everybody, individuals, businesses, neighborhoods. Maybe individuals, maybe that's a word to use instead of residents and homeowners.
Well, community members.
Yeah.
Eastham community members, whoever's alive and breathing in Eastham.
Yeah.
I think that could work.
Yeah. Any thoughts on this statement?
I think it looks good.
I'm gonna forward both of these over to Willow, to prep for the goals meeting. Okay. Any other thoughts and questions? Otherwise, we'll move to the next piece.
This includes visitors.
Is it? Yes, yeah. Well, that's individuals, right? Community.
I mean, come on, we go from 4,000 to 15,000 in the summer.
I know.
All those people are visitors, most of them.
Well, they're part of our community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should be educating them too.
So the next piece is and we typically do this around this time of the year as we're wrapping up. It's kind of a backward look at our goals for this year, how we think, what we think worked well, what we think might be worthy of continuing or reviving for next year. And this is not to be, this is not a this is not meant to be a there we go. This is not an employee review. We're a committee, so everyone is contributing to all the pieces, and we're not trying to not trying to point to any person in particular here, but our leads for each of them. What I wanted to do was just kind of get your thoughts on how we as a community, we as a committee did on some of these goals. So the first one was the climate action plan, and Roberta has given me some items for that. So the of course greenhouse gas inventory we did complete. It didn't quite get done in February, but it was close. The strategic plan inputs are, well, they're input to the strategic plan committee, and that committee is still meeting. I believe they're meeting again in December, and they promised that they would give us their latest. But I believe that our top level inputs that you all helped with were widely accepted by the committee, and we're just waiting on their formal release. The vision, outline vision for the climate action plan. To some extent, that was a piece that got us moving with the Cape Cod Commission. So as a finalized outline and formal vision, I would say it's a couple PowerPoint slides, but I think for the most part, that's been taken over by what the committee has put forward, which you'll see in a minute. And the same with the next line, the identification of resources and potential sources of funding. So as a formal document, that really didn't happen, but you know, luckily the commission has picked that up. So you'll see again, they're taking the lead, and they're providing the technical assistance through a technical assistance program that they have for us. Okay. And that essentially becomes the plan of action that you'll see coming up next. Okay, so in terms of the key performance indicators, the web page has not been done. That's something that will be done as part of the CAP plan next year, and public workshop as well. That is postponed till next year. We do have a stakeholders list. You'll see that in a minute. That is pending, you know, approval. Actually, I'll say not approval, but the town has taken responsibility for that now, but they've taken our inputs and they are working on that. Presentation to the select board was done, and the really we did not publish documents yet on the inventory, and we don't have like I said, a formal recommended way forward document. But for the most part, I think we're in good shape moving forward on this. We're just lucky to have the commission pulling that together.
You are planning on publishing this or making this a document at some point, or is this just for our?
This is just for us.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, and also it's kind of a again, kind of a discussion here that will help us as we get to the goals meeting.
Yep.
So any thoughts here on the first goal?
Only a question, Tom. The stakeholders list, that's going to the town now?
So the town is creating stakeholders along with the commission. Yes.
I see. Okay.
So
the list that we did,
yeah, the work list, they have that.
oh, they have that.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, and you'll see that in a minute. And so far, so good. So there's been a little bit of tweaking on that, but they were very happy with it.
Good.
Okay. So goal 2. Again, this was Roberta, and this is the specialized building code, and that has been adopted. So that first piece, I think, is it's certainly done. The second piece, a volunteer approach to public outreach on the benefits of decarbonization, I think that's something that we would like to get to. That might be something that we consider in terms of energy, zero energy buildings for next year. And I know, Olaf, you've been looking a little bit at some of the documentation that's been coming through.
Right.
Any thoughts on
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, so what I've been doing is trying to understand. There was an article published, I think it was a Globe that initially published it, and they talked about challenges with the high electricity prices in Massachusetts, and compared the equivalent, to natural gas or oil, and found that, there are certain pathways that are not as cost effective going to heat pumps. And so what I ended up doing is I think we're planning on putting that on the agenda for January. But basically, the state has a goal of installing 500,000 heat pumps by 2030. Since 2019, they've installed about 96,000 or something. And we have 5 years to hit that 500,000 heat pump goal by 2030. Which would mean like 100,000 heat pumps per year, essentially, if you have a 5-year period of time. And so the question is really like, what is the obstacle? What is the barrier to adaptation in this market? And one of the things is like incentives are available and can offset the first cost. But the minute you start running those heat pumps, you may discover that, the economics may be, not as good as you had expected. And so it's important for us to understand these things. What impact does the incentives have? What impact does the actual rates have? It was interesting when Maggie was here presenting from CLC, she was talking about how there used to be a heating rate. Like the electricity company, Eversource, National Grid, they would have a electric heating rate that kind of like sort of, made it a little bit more economical for people that use electric resistance heat. So it's not it's not an unheard of situation that they could be considering maybe something like a heat pump rate or whatever. But what I'm going to do is I'm basing a lot of the data on data I can get from Eversource about my home specifically. But I can also, my plan is to also do some break-even analysis to figure out like what would the rate, at what rate would electric heat pump versus gas be sort of equivalent, things like that.
That would be great because, and especially if you can do it in a way that can be updated as rates change.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I get the oil rates from Reliance, which is the Self-Reliance, exactly. They publish daily prices, and so today it's 3.02 in Eastham. It's a little bit cheaper. If you go down, down. There seems to be the price jumps when it comes to, if you have to drive from Orleans to Eastham, it's a lot more. So,
Yeah.
So that but I think that in general, I think that their focus, the Mass Save focus, will be to try to get to those people first who are at the higher echelon of paying for heat. Oil potentially and even electric resistance. So I'll include those, 4 fuels, heat pump fuel, electric resistance, natural gas, and oil. And that should cover most of the stuff that we're doing here. Could even look at propane if there's, I don't know how big a chunk that is. There's probably something, so we can maybe throw in propane as well.
There's a huge chunk, as you know, of oil in Eastham.
Yes.
And if that, for instance, if that turns out to be one of the most cost-effective moves to heat pumps, maybe that's something we focus on.
Yeah, exactly. And so we just need to know what those things are and what the ranges are and what people can expect.
Well, heating oil is the biggest polluter, and it's also most expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And least efficient.
No, it absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
So that's great. And you're right, there have been discussions just at the, I wasn't at last week's board meeting, but prior one at Compact, we did discuss what's called the electric space heating rate, which I believe is still in existence, but there's not much of a difference between that and the basic rate. And we were discussing and debating the benefits of maybe putting some of the energy efficiency benefits into that rate. Because you're going to see the energy efficiency surcharges increase next year as they have for oil already. Gas already. And there's also discussion about I don't remember what it's called now, but it's it's basically a surcharge and a fossil fuel carbon surcharge is going to come with the gas in the future. At least that's what the state has been discussing. So if that happens, some of those prices will come up as well.
So was Cape Light looking at a rate structure that's heat specific versus,
It's the
other-
DPW that has to approve all that stuff, but we can make
with smart meters, you should be
recommendations.
able to do it.
Yeah,
Cause you can track the usage and you know when the heating spikes are happening. If you look at the 24-hour, any 24-hour period, so you can say, okay, well, that was for heating, so I can charge those kilowatt hours at this rate and then the rest at another rate.
Yeah.
I just had a dumb question about, isn't it the specialized stretch code?
Yeah.
And the stretch code? Cause we got specialized energy code, we got specialized building code. We should be consistent in
Yeah, I don't think it's specialized stretch code.
So, yeah,
well,
specialized,
this is the
No, it
wording
isn't.
that we had at the beginning of the year,
Yeah.
so, yeah, the
Oh.
state kind of changed their
Oh, they did change the
terminology on
terminology?
the
Okay.
stretch code versus the
wasn't,
specialized
code.
stretch, yeah, so
was it specialized code and stretch code? Is that the two current terms?
it's under the, yeah,
Okay.
you'll see it both.
Okay,
All right, renewable energy, generation and storage, so that's the solar working group. What do you call yourselves right now?
We're working on it.
Solar
We do
working
call
group.
ourselves a solar working group.
Yeah,
But we may have some ideas we have some ideas for changing it, but that's for another meeting. So in 2024, we had this broad goal of accelerating, growing the adoption of renewable local energy generation and storage, and it broke it down into 3 objectives. Excuse me. The first objective was very much focused on getting information and resources out to members of the community to help them reduce their carbon footprint and take more advantage of solar. And so we were targeting producing information sheets on key topics and producing a hands-on event, a clinic, which we did in June, with the key performance indicators associated with those, getting the materials distributed and posted to the webpage, and so out there and accessible. And then for the special event, we were looking to get, a good level of participation and also some sort of indication that people who participated were going to do something with whatever information and value they derive from the clinic. And so we have an evaluation that speaks to that and favorably. So taking those quickly one at a time, we have, thanks largely to Jack's work, we have a series of fact sheets on solar power. It comprises 4 different individual fact sheets that cover different aspects of solar energy and solar power. We're finishing refining those, but they're basically ready for public release and making them available to the public. And that connects to a broader subject that we started talking about earlier, which is how do we get these good materials out there? We don't want to continue to invest a lot of time in building good stuff like this if we don't have a good, clean, effective way to get the material to the people who need it. So whether it's through the webpage and or through other sources, we want to make sure that we figure that out as part of and before really further developing materials like this, because now we've got some good stuff and let's figure out how to get it out there. So the event went, we went to the clinic, I'm sorry, in addition to the series on solar power, we also produced an FAQs, a more elaborate FAQs document that was really following up on the clinic. The clinic was focused on residential solar. It was intended to be a very hands-on event where people who were ready to make a move could get the help they need. We also had a community solar part to that as well. And following up on that, we pulled out of the discussion that we heard some of the frequently asked questions, and we produced a roughly 5-page document that we think is really good stuff. And again, we want to make sure we're getting that out to people who need it. That was a result of activity under 3.1, objective 3.1. And then the evaluations on the event, just to cover that one, we had 25 households represented, and all but 2 of them said that they were likely to take some action that they hadn't been planning on as a result of participating in the clinic. And we have seen some of that sort of directly. Mike fielded was it 2 or 3?
One-on-ones after.
One-on-ones
And
afterwards.
then people at the Windmill Weekend came up to us and said,
That's
hey,
right.
we installed solar because you
That's
did
right.
those clinics.
Right, so we're getting partial word of mouth, even some formal input back that indicates that these events are having an impact, so that's good stuff, that's good news. One thing that did occur to me, sort of a side note, I don't see the survey reflected in any of the 2024 activity that we're covering.
In terms of the goals, yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't on the list.
Yeah, it wasn't on the
I
list,
know,
right,
which
so,
is awesome that, you know,
right,
that
so-
we found that and added that.
so we wanna account for that somewhere.
Yeah, let's add that as,
So another thing that I would point out, which wasn't called out in the key performance indicators in the 3.1, was our efforts to improve the web presence and improve the web page. And we did produce, the working group produced a set of recommendations. Eleni presented those a couple of meetings ago. And we feel like we've got a good solid plan and concept for how to really strengthen that as a resource moving forward. It goes again to the point made earlier about making sure we've got ways to get the good materials out there. But that was part of the effort that the working group undertook in the past year as well, under the same 3.1 objectives. So then moving forward to 3.2, the focus there was on identifying opportunities for renewable energy application by the town. Not necessarily for municipal facilities, but building scale renewable energy applications that the town would be behind. And we had set the goal of identifying some opportunities and ultimately producing a memo to describe options for the town. That needs to carry forward into the coming year. We did some initial data collection, but it hasn't progressed really much farther than that at this point. It seems pretty clear that, the tea time development project is going to be a major target and a major opportunity to do some of this and for this committee to provide advice and counsel on that. I don't know if that would be part of a climate action plan, one of the activities that would be called for under the climate action plan. But that's something that's a question I think that we need to answer as part of the December 18th session. Do we want to take what we had set out, hope to make more progress on in 24 and carry that forward in 25? Or do we want to, shift to looking at other things?
but sounds like definitely a candidate for 2024.
Yes, indeed, it is a candidate. And I think similarly, under 3.3, 3.3 of the final objective was focused on community solar. We wanted to identify opportunities for the town again to take some actions to bring and make community solar more accessible to members of the community. And Mike really spearheaded this for us and did a great job in interacting with town staff, also talking to, beyond the town to other members of the broader community, including the Audubon Society and the CVEC community and so forth. And I think where this stands is that the town feels like they've considered various options and they're not seeing a good sort of commercially viable way to make this work as any set of projects that the town would do focused on community solar, but instead they want to focus more on the revenue that can be generated from solar projects more generally, and figuring out how to take some of that revenue stream and put it in and apply it to the people who need it, basically, low income and others. So here, what we set out to do was develop a memo and provide some recommendations. It's kind of ending up in a place where it's kind of moot and where, because of the direction the town is taking. But community solar more generally is something that we definitely want to continue to follow up on in 2025. I think what we're going to propose as a working group is to not focus so much on what the town would do to potentially develop projects, but focus on ways that we can help the community understand how they can access community solar. because there are multiple ways to do that and multiple scenarios, individual scenarios that would justify doing that and make it a good use of someone's resources. So
you said moot for that one, but wouldn't that be more for 2024? It was less applicable, but still potential for the future, right?
there's still potential, yeah.
Municipal solar and community solar.
Yeah,
And we were dealt a bit of a blow with the CVEC bid that came in, which was
Right.
not executable.
right, exactly, yeah.
And I think since then there has been interest, right, Mike? I mean,
Correct.
I think we're still seeing that.
Interest from. the
Well,
town?
CVAC wants to propose a couple of different options where they do, multiple municipalities work together
Mhm.
at a particular site. And then much like we have here at the landfill, right? So our solar farm at the landfill helps not just Eastham, but it has offshoots to Wellfleet and some of the communities. Well, CVEC is saying now that, well, that maybe there's other real estate within the county that multiple municipalities can benefit from a large system and get a percentage of that system
Mhm.
versus just that municipality getting all of
Going
it.
it alone,
Right.
right,
So-
okay.
What do you think of the approach that Barnstable is using with a percentage of the solar production being set aside for internships?
I mean,
I guess we don't
I don't-
control high school.
yeah,
but
right,
it's-
we don't know
it's an
enough
interesting
about,
approach.
what's, how many residents of the town need noble work during the summer, and how's it gonna benefit them? I guess we need to understand, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna
What-
ask Sean more, how much their success depends on the particular character of the facility that they're affecting. They've got this fairly large, well-integrated set of buildings that they can kind of bring together and generate a lot of energy and opportunity and resources that could then be poured into internships. And I don't know if we have something comparable to that or something comparable enough that multiple municipalities can go in on together. It seems like they've got a pretty ideal setup for what they were trying to achieve, and I wonder if we could
I
match
mean,
that.
it's certainly an option, looking at what can we do to sponsor, internships locally with Eastham resident students. And it could be cut across technical, it could come, sociological, it could be, putting up, signs at the beaches, or, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things it could involve. Improve, awareness on community gardens, and recycling, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you could
Yeah.
do.
Well, I think and I guess I'm not suggesting internship is the answer, but the concept of carving off, some percentage of the proceeds.
I mean, I
do
think we have to bring it to Rich and see what Rich thinks. I
Yeah.
mean, Rich is motive right now on additional solar projects for the town is how do we maximize the return the town can have? And then the town will figure out how to best disperse the dollars, to who needs it. So that
We
was
do have.
the feedback I got from Rich.
Don't we have a grant program? I can't remember what it's called, but where residents can apply for, some grant money from a fund, I believe, that was made available through the town. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called a community fund, community action fund.
Yes, there we go.
And I'm sorry, who would be eligible to apply for that? Are you talking about individuals? No.
It's individuals who have demonstrated need can apply to the community action fund for assistance in a variety of different capacities.
So right there's a.
For example, to pay their tax, just as an example, to pay their taxes, for instance.
So it's intended, Kathy, for that sort of scale of assistance, would you say, or do you?
I would say that it's focused on people who are what I'll describe as perhaps lower income and in need of some financial assistance. This is financial assistance that will be provided through the town.
Okay.
Yeah, so that, there's a vehicle right there, right, that the select board has established, so. The president.
It was just put into, it was put into law in July of 2024.
Okay. So thanks, John. That's, I appreciate that. Quite a lot of good work done there. Goal 4 was in the area of transportation. And I think we all struggled a little bit with this one, but Mike,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts?
Well, again, I did reach out to multiple folks, from adjacent towns, Truro, Wellesley, Orleans, and, we've gotten good traction with the, workshops coming up. I mean, well, the one workshop we had one EV touch and learn car show at the Snow Library in Orleans in October, and we have another one coming up this Saturday. Speaking of which, have you sent out the, to our email list, flyer for the upcoming one?
I would do that.
Okay, thank you.
What
Usually
time?
wait for the week.
2:30.
The week prior to catch everyone while they're thinking
Yeah,
about
right.
what they're doing this.
Yeah, so I've met with, for Saturday, I've met with, Brian and Steve and made sure everything is, working fine and we're all set. So we're gonna set aside, I got cones I'm picking up Friday afternoon from the DPW to mark the spots where we can park the electric vehicles at the Yelps. And then we're gonna have a table set up in the foyer where folks come in. I didn't realize that the meat raffles are members and guests. Members and guests of members, so it's not open to the public.
People can come and sign in as I
Okay.
understand
All
it.
right, anyway. So we're gonna set up, as you enter the vestibule, the left-hand side is the member side, the right-hand side is the, side that they lease or use for events. So we're gonna be on the right side. And the people going to the meat raffle will be on the left. And we're gonna try to, again, make folks aware as they enter that vestibule area before they go in. Some people hopefully will come in just for the EV show, but other folks will be there, I'm sure, primarily for the meat raffle. So we're gonna try to coax some of them over afterwards. You know, we'll have the cars parked outside. It's a huge, so, do you have the banner?
I do.
Okay, so I'd like to get the banner from you and set that up, as well. Anyway, so this will be the second electric vehicle touch and learn car show where I give an intro, electric vehicles 101, discuss everything from charging to, road trips to navigation to, you know, vehicles available, leasing, et cetera, et cetera.
Did you get any follow-up from the first one? I'm curious. Did people follow up to say? It was either questions or
No,
to tell
no.
you they had bought a vehicle?
No.
Okay.
What
They're
time is
very
it like
engaged.
on
2:30,
2:30?
Saturday, yeah.
They were very engaged. There was a lot of interest,
Oh, yeah,
a
it was
lot of
good-
good discussion.
Great, yeah, great discussion and great feedback when they did the walkarounds with the owners.
Mhm.
You know, they go sit in the vehicles, ask the owners questions about the
Yeah.
vehicles, what they like, what they didn't like, you know, how they drive, how they, you know, so. And we're gonna do that again this Saturday, so I will give an intro, which will be about 30 to 45 minutes, again, talks about everything EVs, tries to dispel some of the myths
Mhm.
that people have.
We should do one of those in the heart of the summer and get our visitors.
Yeah, well, hopefully next year we'll add more, right? We've got a late start this year.
Yeah.
Do you talk, Tom, also about, Mike, do you talk also about hybrids?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
About how we don't want hybrids. So the focus is on battery electric vehicles. I do tell them that hybrids have the highest, risk from a fire perspective and worst maintenance, record. So, I mean, I do mention that, but the focus is all electric. All right, because again, the PHEVs, well, the plug-in hybrid electric vehicles are just, you know, they're interim step for some folks who have an inferiority complex with going all electric.
Range anxiety.
Right, right. But they should know that they are the worst fire hazard of light duty transportation. And they should also know they have the highest rate of,
Is it a
failure,
significant
because
fire
you've got-
hazard?
you get the internal combustion engine and its subsystems to fail, and you get the electric and its subsystems to fail. So once you add more and more stuff, there's more and more opportunities for failure. So, and I'm not making it up.
I hear you, I hear
I
you.
provide references, all right, for folks to go
Mike?
do, yes, Harriet.
Mike, I have a question. So I'm wondering, in the light of the results of the election, I know that I was able to attend the first one and talked about the various federal tax credits and what have you. So what do you know what you plan to say? Like, it's just to be determined what's going to happen next year? We don't know, or?
Yeah, all I say is that, right now, I talk about the current leases. People can lease a vehicle for short money right now because all those incentives get rolled in independent of where the car is made, independent of their financial status. So they don't need to worry about qualifying for the federal tax credit or the income limit or the vehicle being made mostly in the United States. But for a lease vehicle, they have that opportunity now. What happens after January 20th of next year? Anybody's got a clue, right? So you've got Professor Musk, that wants to get rid of, government subsidies, of course, unless they benefit his company. So he benefits. If you look at his bottom line, Tesla gets over $1 billion a year in income from other auto manufacturers because they're buying carbon credits to offset their inability to meet the emissions requirements, right? So he gets benefit from that. So why he wants to kill that, I don't know, all right? Or maybe he's saying, well, let's kill the $7,500 tax credit, but, I still want my carbon credits. So we'll see what happens next year. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
That's the least.
Okay, thank you.
Anything on this list that you recommend we consider for next year, or we're gonna add?
Oh, definitely gonna do more education sessions. We'll do more workshops. I'd like to reach out and do more as I learned this week. I asked the owner of Cape Associates his motivation for why he put in those DC fast chargers. I said, it had to be other than just offering them to the public. He says, yeah, because we got a state grant to add several vehicles to our fleet. So Cape Associates has a couple of electric vans. They have a Tesla, they have a Rivian, they have a Volkswagen ID4, they have another truck as well. So they've got several electric vehicles as part of their fleet now. So we want to do something with respect to the commercial folks, so people understand that it's not just residents who can drive electric vehicles, but there's also businesses that can take advantage of it, as well as electric buses. I want to make sure people understand what the schools are doing, and for them to look at how can they control and also provide a source of revenue stream in virtual power plants, and make sure people understand the benefit of not having to fire up a peaker plant at the canal in the middle of the summer, at late in the afternoon, when everybody's trying to turn on air conditioners, that we can actually tap these batteries that are available to the grid and not have to worry about doing that. So things like that, we want to make sure that folks understand are all tied together to transportation. So it's not just the vehicles going from point A to point B. The vehicles can be used to power your house in an outage, and those vehicles can be used to power the grid.
Should some of that be added to the white paper? I think we got the white paper online, didn't we? I'm pretty sure we did.
I think it's in the white paper. I know it's in my briefing for
Right,
what I do at the workshop.
On the peak,
I know.
peak
I
and
guess I'll
the
look-
connected solutions that
Yeah.
could be coming to help with that.
Right.
That might be something.
And I make sure everyone's aware that at this residence in Eastham, I heat the house, I cool the house, and I drive the electric vehicle for free. Because in 2018, when I put the solar in, that's now all been paid for in my income in terms of hasn't been paid for because I didn't finance it, I paid cash. But all my income since 2018 is paid for what I invested. And so now, again, going forward, people should understand what they can do with renewable energy. And it doesn't necessarily take somebody that has to be a millionaire to do it.
So the second item I'm curious about, did we get what you were hoping to get from the survey and or the greenhouse gas inventory?
I don't know that I have the survey results quantified specifically for electric vehicles in transportation. So maybe it's there, I just haven't seen it, or I just have to go digest it. So,
I mean, that could be something we consider for the future. I mean, one of the things I think that, for instance, the visitors center could help us with is a little survey there, if the chamber would agree to that, because that reaching the visitors is really hard.
Yeah.
Right, and that would be.
I'm sure Jim would agree.
Yeah, that would be an option maybe for getting more info.
Because Jim has posted the car show stuff on the Chamber of Commerce website as well, so I know Jim very well.
Yeah, so there may be several options for, for finding those use surveys, the use patterns. Okay, thank you. This is all good. I will, I took some notes on this and I'll send out, a quick update, so don't reply all, of course, but just for your own areas. And then I'll send those over to Willow. Okay. Thank you. So the next item we have is the CAP work scope. So I'm going to show this to you. You saw this in the packet. Hopefully you were able to find time to take a quick peek at it. But let me give you an overview of what we're going to be doing.
Did we go to 6:30? Or
Yeah,
6? We go to 6:30.
Anyway, so the pieces of the for the work plan is is as outlined by the commission. This is a draft. Roberta and I went over this with them, and they're building a lot of detail below this. So once that is released, we'll have more information that we can roll out, so you'll get a better idea of what's going on there. But the beginning part of this is happening now through January. We talked about the stakeholder list. They're doing reviews of town reports and town demographics. So they have a lot of ways to pull some info perhaps that we don't have easy access to. They kind of know where all this stuff is. And then there'll be a coordination meeting to with the town sometime in January to get this thing moving. And that will be with a group of stakeholders, and you'll see the list coming up. A key part of this is to look at the climate survey, and they've already sent a request out, and John and Jack will be kind of guiding them. They asked that you could guide them through what you saw in the survey and the survey results, and they'll probably want to get into some detail on that.
We don't have a date for that.
No, we don't have a date yet. No, I did send them the suggested date. There's a chance, there's a chance at this point in time that I wouldn't be surprised if it's January before that meeting happens. Following that, they're going to be going through with the different town departments and stakeholders and talking to the town staff. They may want to combine related departments. In some cases, they may want to just talk directly to a particular department, depending on how much how relevant contribution they'll have to the climate action plan. And as part of that, of course, they'll be wrapping in all the things that are already identified or in planning already or to be planned. As part of this, it's all very synergistic with all the town plans that are out there. So that will take up to, they're projecting out into the April roughly timeframe. The nice part about all this is that we don't have to get super engaged in this. They're going to be doing those actions. One of our concerns, I think, was that we might not have anything else going on if all we were doing was the climate action plan. So it's really full steam ahead on whatever else we want to do in our goals session, whatever we identify as things that we still want to be moving forward on based on our.
Yeah, don't we want to guide them on questions to ask the various departments?
No, they're going to guide us. They've done this before. So part of this, they
How do
will
we know
be.
what's relevant to climate?
What's relevant to climate?
Yeah.
They're climate experts.
Oh, you're thinking
I'm
of,
talking about the
you're
town
talking about-
departments.
No, the technical experts from the commission will be coming in and doing that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they already have, a lot of, arrows in their quiver as to, what are possibilities, based on the Cape Cod plan.
Okay, are they gonna share those questions with us though?
I hope so.
Okay,
I hope
good,
so.
thank you.
And one of the things we did ask is that they're gonna have a series of they're calling these focus sessions. We asked that they have a focus session with the full climate committee. So we will sit down with them and have a good look at, some of our ideas, some of what what they're thinking would be good for Eastham. And all this is gonna come together somewhere in the April timeframe with a list of stuff that they'll be synthesizing. Actually, I guess their synthesis is down in April, because worked in here is community engagement. We'll definitely want to get involved in some of that. Although again, luckily, they're going to take the lead in putting together the material for those. So we'll kind of see how that goes in terms of, it'd be nice if we, my opinion, if we got some insights into what they're thinking, and maybe we can provide some early feedback on what they're getting prepared for the town. So that'll take us through July. And I guess Kathy, perhaps another focus group might be ERPA. So we can talk about that. We're going to be meeting with Kathy on Wednesday to talk about the survey and other actions that we can collaborate on. So maybe that's something we can talk about on Wednesday.
Sure.
Then in the August timeframe, they're going to be pulling all this together, both inputs from the town, inputs from the community engagement, inputs from the various stakeholders, and they'll start putting together the climate action plan. And the goal is that they will, we'll have access at that point, certainly along the way, I hope, but perhaps even more so as they get into putting this together and ramping up to start reviewing it with the town, with us, with the select board. And the goal we had set for them was to have this ready for adoption by the select board in the January timeframe.
I have a question looking at step one. I know this is just, I just wonder how much of the resources, so there's a budget, what have you, and if there was something that showed the budget allocation. The initial assessment, it just seems like a lot of this we've already talked about, like having a stakeholder list. Certainly that's something, Paul, that the planning department should have. I could see perhaps reviewing the town's existing stakeholder list and saying, oh, well, there's a particular sector that we find it helpful to talk to, we don't see on your list. It just seems like that's kind of already been done. The initial assessment of Eastham demographics. I know they're going to be looking at American Community Survey, but there's just, perhaps it seems to me there's a lot of the particularly step one that has already been done largely by town staff or through efforts of the committee. So, like I say, I don't know, maybe just they see this as, just a very small part of their scope of work, and they're just going to do a quick review with what's already been done and completed, just for their own edification and understanding. But I could see reviewing, but initial assessment, I don't know. So, am I just they're going to be looking at the existing information on Eastham demographics, or are they going to be assessing Eastham demographics? Like they're going to be looking at census data, I guess. Maybe I just just a little bit to the extent that how you think of it, how much time they're going to be spending on these activities.
Yeah, so they really begin work in January. Their funding starts in January. They're doing some pre-work with us. For instance, the stakeholder list. Shana is going to be working that as well. Obviously, she's got to talk to each of the departments. Again, I'll show you the list in just a second. So yeah, a lot of that is pre-work and getting the plan for the plan together. So you're right. Essentially, step one is building off a lot of what we've done. All right, so let me show you the stakeholder list, and big thanks to the CAP working group, and a big part of this is Gary, putting together. He took the lead on putting together a stakeholder list, and so this is kind of the current thinking. But again, it's being reviewed by the town and by the commission. But you'll see the relevant committees, and some ideas on who might be, part of it, or perhaps would have a rep. But these are the various departments, and or committees, that we believe have a stake, in what a cap would include, and how a cap would get executed, how actions in the cap would get executed. And you'll see in here, we did have part-time residents. We did have the senior center and council on aging.
Why is school not a department? There's no school department in the town,
I don't think we have a department.
but we have elected, do we have elected school committee members?
We do.
But that's not part of the school department. So who's this,
I think, well, remember, we have a regional school department.
not for the Eastham Elementary?
Yeah, that's run by the.
That's also
that's
regional? It's,
Nauset
oh,
Regional, yeah. We own the building, but it's Nauset Regional that runs it.
okay, so
That's
so our elementary school Eastham services more than just Eastham.
Say again,
Our elementary school here in Eastham
no.
services more than just
No,
Eastham.
no, but it was
Okay, but
incorporated
it's
into the Nauset
incorporated,
Regional.
all right. all
I
right.
think each of the towns have their own elementary school perhaps, or maybe some of them are shared, but
Okay,
I don't know.
interesting.
Yeah, so anyway, if you have any thoughts on this, I don't wanna, spend a lot of time on it just now, cause we're getting close to the end here, but, any thoughts, send me suggestions. And then
So would that be regional then rather than community? Sorry.
I guess it would be. Let's see. So you're thinking school leaders under community? Well, I mean,
Regional. Isn't it really a regional school? There's
oh, okay, I see what
superintendent,
you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, all right, well, that's fine,
All right.
that's semantic,
All right.
but yeah, you're right.
No, I just make sure
You're
we get into the right, we're not just doing clubs at the school, but it should be like the superintendent, that level of, engagement.
Yeah, I hope
Okay.
so, or their representative.
Right,
Yeah, it will be Mike.
Okay, and then I also included a list, and Harriet helped with a lot of this in terms of the plans that Eastham has been working, and we've kind of taken a quick look at what might be relevant, and we've given those to the commission, and they are taking a look at that as well, and pulling that data, reviewing the plans. All right. So all that's in your board packet, or your meeting packet, if you wish to dive into more detail. Next piece we were going to discuss, we've hit already, the EV buses. So yeah, thanks, Mike, for getting us up to date on that. And I have while I have the screen here, I'll just mention, these are the meeting dates. So you have it in your packet. The second Monday of each month, except October 20th, because October 13th is the Columbus Day holiday. So again, take a quick look at that. If anyone sees any major issues, we can make changes now. Otherwise, what I'll do is I'll reserve the rooms for the year, and we can always make changes as we get closer as need be. But just for your own calendars, there it is. Okay. Next on the agenda is just a discussion, other business, chair's report. I'll mention December 18th is our goals meeting, and that'll be right here in the Earle Mountain meeting room. So that's for the core committee members. The EV car show on this coming Saturday, so encourage everyone to come out for that. We did receive an invitation, I guess, to send someone to the Mass Recycles Conference. And that is held in January. If anyone is interested in that, any member of the committee, I don't know if I can send volunteers, but Jackie offered to send someone to that conference. So you can look that up, just type in, Google Maps Recycles, and you'll see the details of it.
Do you know where it is?
I think it's in Cambridge.
Oh.
Now, this raises some other questions as to how, travel is handled. I don't know. But if someone's interested, we can go figure that out. All right. Let's see, a couple other quick items. The Cape Light Compact, you may have, if you saw, Maggie Downey's review with the select board, she talked about the solar loan program, so that is coming out. What I'll do for a future meeting is kind of summarize all that stuff, but I think very exciting because a lot of these loans now are coming in to in a great graduated scale for income qualified. It's a very, very low income or very, very low interest rate. And some of these are covering up to moderate income levels, which is great. So that's there's a lot of good information coming out there and a lot of good programs coming out. As far as I know, the program that the Compact is administering, we just got the first disbursement of funds. So that is getting set up right now through KCOT 5. And folks can call the Compact hotline to get more information. There was also a really interesting item that came out of Mass CBC. They're launching a trial of a no-cost navigators support program. We had talked a while back about, we had even suggested that the Compact maybe consider this to have an energy navigators kind of program, which would provide technical assistance to folks. Different communities have those types of programs. Mass CDC has agreed to start one. They're doing a trial run in a couple of communities, and it looks like they're interested in rolling that out to the rest of the state at some point in time, if it's successful. So again, you can look that up on their website, the Navigator Support Program. And that is all I have. Any other business? Anything folks would like to bring up that we haven't covered? Any news or items you want to share with the committee? All right, seeing none. Well, the last item is the request for town support through the next month. So what I have noted here, I'm going to ask for easels and markers for our goals meeting. I don't know if there's, I guess we have to ask them to bring it out here. We'll ask for I'll ask again for the survey report release. We'll ask or remind them of the email blast. I haven't seen that for the car show. We talked about the Facebook site. Would we be allowed to do Energy and Climate Committee Facebook page? And we'll request signs to be put on the chargers saying those are non-operational. Anything else that I might have missed?
I think to Jack's point earlier, I think, mobilizing whatever materials we have right now out to the 250 people that we have an email list for. I don't know if we're good with that or not good with that, but it really feels like we keep having these opportunities to try to reach people. Have we made a decision that that's cool?
That's cool, yeah.
It's cool.
So one idea for that, Tom, and others is to avoid spamming people, is to send out a note to say, we've posted some new resources that will be of interest to you. Here's where you can go to get them, including the survey report.
Right.
And if the town can assure us that they can put those materials in a place like they did for the workshop that we did for solar a year and a half ago, they put all the materials related to that event in one place on the site. if we had a teaser, like the new materials, here's what they are, go here, all in one place to find those things. That might be one approach that would be useful.
Okay, let me throw out an idea. Do you think it'd be worth having an email blast from the town to say, hey, this, the report has been released?
Yeah, if there's a place to go to get it.
Agreed, it needs to be, yeah, put some, yeah, coincidental with the posting of the report.
Right.
I would say that that's one thing. I think we could actually send the report, to the 250 people.
It's a very large document in terms of email space. I'd rather send the link. As soon as it's up
Yeah.
there, send a link
Yeah,
and say,
okay,
click
fair
here.
enough,
Yeah.
fair enough. It
Yeah.
seems like we keep.
Cause that gives people, then people have the choice.
Other, it's like at least 5 megabyte.
Yeah, that's a big file for it. I mean, it can be done, but it's a huge file for people to.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that's a great idea, but let's send the link as soon as we have
well,
it.
maybe with other things that aren't quite that big. but
Agreed,
It just
agreed.
feels like, we keep talking about it. We can't mobilize.
What about, so one of the suggestions, I think it was last month, was, should we do a newsletter? Maybe
Yeah.
that becomes our newsletter saying, hey, here's what's coming up.
Yeah.
Here's what you can find, here's something highlighted on our webpage that you can find, and we send them the links. Do you think that would be worthwhile?
I do.
How often?
Quarterly,
What do you think?
Quarterly?
probably.
Quarterly would be
We can
good.
start with one in January, and we'll
Every
say
other
they'll be
month.
periodic until we can figure out what our cadence should be.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
we
wouldn't
talked
do
about that in
anything-
the working group.
I wouldn't do anything more than once a month.
I would
Once
just
a
say
month is the most.
every other month.
Every other month feels good, but we have to have the right material,
Each
so
quarter.
we start one in
who's gonna
January,
do it?
February.
Right, that's the
Yeah,
thing.
and what from everyone tells me, newsletter can be a task, it really is. It's not something you do in like 10, 15 minutes.
Well,
It's-
that's true too.
Yeah,
There are lots
It
of
takes
different
a while to
models
put it
for it
together.
too. You can,
Yeah, but you
I
could-
would say we want something very concise.
So probably
Guess I
something
gotta
we
talk-
wanna, well, I would say, let's talk about it at the goals meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's see where that ranks and how much time we wanna put into it, whether it's just a, one paragraph like we do for the COA newsletter, or whether it's something more involved.
You can have a bullet point newsletter, so pretty short and sweet.
Right.
All right, if there's no other.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, entertain a motion.
Second that motion.
Motion has been seconded, and all in favor? Adjourn.
I get
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.